The sun had long set on the distant moon orbiting Proxima Centauri b, casting the landscape in an eerie glow. The air was thick with humidity, and strange sounds echoed through the dense forest that stretched endlessly before them. Captain Alex. Carter stood at the edge of their temporary camp, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. Beside him, Lily Morgan adjusted her equipment, her fingers moving quickly over the controls as she tried to make sense of the data they had collected so far. This mission was unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. They were not here to conquer or claim territory. Instead, they were explorers, scientists, and diplomats, sent to study the alien species known as the Veilith. These insectoid creatures were native to this moon, living in small tribes scattered across its surface. What made them unique, however, was not their appearance or technology, it was their behavior. Over the past few days, the human team had observed something truly bizarre. The Veilith seemed to worship humans. It all started when the team first encountered one of the Veilith tribes deep within the glowing jungle. At first glance, the creatures appeared harmless if somewhat unsettling. Their exoskeletons shimmered faintly under the dim light of the twin moons above, and their large, multifaceted eyes reflected every flicker of movement around them. But it wasn't their physical traits that caught the attention of the humans, it was their actions. As the team approached cautiously, the Veilith dropped to their knees, bowing low to the ground. Their antennae twitched nervously, and from their mandibles came a series of clicks and hums that sounded almost like chanting. It took hours of careful observation and translation work by Daniel, the communications officer, to piece together what they were saying. The words were garbled, at first, but eventually a clear message emerged. Protectors and gods, save us. At first, Alex thought it might be some kind of misunderstanding. Perhaps the Veilith mistook their advanced technology for divine power. After all, humanity's ships could traverse the stars, and their weapons could cut through steel and bone alike. But as the days passed, it became clear that this wasn't just a case of mistaken identity. The Veilith genuinely believed that humans were special, capable of feats beyond comprehension. What puzzled the team most was the context of these rituals. Every time the Veilith prepared to venture into the forest, they would gather in a circle and project holographic images of humans onto the ground using primitive devices. These projections looked crude, almost cartoonish, yet they bore unmistakable resemblance to Earth's people. The Veilith would then kneel before the images, murmuring prayers and touching their foreheads to the soil. Only after completing this ceremony would they dare to enter the treacherous woods. Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than met the eye. She spent hours poring over the recordings, analyzing every detail of the Veilith's behavior. Her mind raced with questions. Why did they pray specifically before entering the forest? What dangers lurked inside those glowing trees that terrified them so much? And why, of all things, did they choose humans as their protectors? Her curiosity only grew when she noticed a pattern. Each time the Veilith returned from the forest, they carried bundles of strange, pulsating pods. These pods glowed faintly, emitting a soft hum that resonated with the same frequency as the bioluminescent plants surrounding them. When asked about the pods, the Veilith refused to explain, retreating behind a wall of silence. Whatever they contained, it was clear that retrieving them was worth risking life and limb. Alex, meanwhile, focused on the practical side of things. He knew that staying too long on this moon posed risks, not just from the environment, but also from the Veilith themselves. While they seemed peaceful enough now, he couldn't ignore the possibility that their reverence might turn sour if expectations weren't met. Still, he couldn't deny the allure of discovery. This was uncharted territory, both scientifically and culturally, and the opportunity to learn more was irresistible. On the third day of their stay, the team witnessed something that left them speechless. A group of Veilith warriors emerged from their huts clad in armor made from chitin and carrying spears tipped with sharpened shards of crystal. They moved with purpose, forming a line as they approached the edge of the forest. Behind them trailed several younger Veilith, clutching tools and supplies. It was clear they were preparing for another expedition. But before stepping foot into the woods, They stopped. One of the elders raised his arms, signaling for silence. The chanting began, again, louder this time, echoing through the stillness of the night. Then came the holograms. Dozens of them projected onto the ground in front of the warriors. Some depicted humans standing tall, while others showed them wielding weapons or battling monstrous creatures. The images shifted and changed, creating a kaleidoscope of scenes that seemed almost dreamlike. Alex felt a chill run down his spine as he watched. There was something hauntingly beautiful about the ritual, yet it was tinged with desperation. The Veilith weren't just praying, they were pleading for protection, for guidance, for salvation, and somehow they believed that humans could provide it. When the ceremony ended, the warriors stepped forward, their resolve hardened. They disappeared into the forest without looking back, leaving the rest of the tribe behind. Lily turned to Alex, her expression grim. "We need to follow them," she said firmly. Alex hesitated. Following the Veilith into the unknown was risky, especially given how little they understood about this place. But he knew she was right. If they wanted answers, they couldn't afford to play it safe. With a nod, he signaled for the team to prepare. They grabbed their gear, checked their weapons, and set off after the Veilith, stepping into the glowing embrace of the forest. The deeper they went, the stranger the world around them became. Trees twisted upward like skeletal hands, their bark pulsing with veins of light. Strange flowers bloomed in clusters, releasing clouds of sparkling spores that danced in the air. And everywhere there were eyes, watching, waiting, unseen. The atmosphere was heavy, oppressive, as if the very forest itself was alive and aware of their presence. It wasn't long before they encountered the first sign of danger. A low growl rumbled through the underbrush, followed by the sound of snapping branches. The Veilith froze, their antennae quivering as they scanned the darkness. Alex tightened his grip on his rifle, his heart pounding in his chest. Whatever was out there, it was big, and it was hungry. Lily reached for her scanner, trying to pinpoint the source of the noise. Her screen lit up with readings, showing multiple heat signatures closing in from different directions. "We're surrounded," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing tension. The Veilith exchanged nervous glances, their earlier confidence wavering. One of them pointed toward the humans, gesturing urgently. It was clear what they wanted. They expected Alex and Lily to take the lead, to face whatever threat lay ahead and prove themselves worthy of the reverence they commanded. For a moment, Alex felt paralyzed by doubt. Could he really live up to the legend the Veilith had built around him? Was he truly capable of protecting them from whatever horrors lurked in the shadows? But then he remembered why they were here. Not for glory or conquest, but for knowledge. For understanding. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, raising his weapon and signaling for the others to stay close. The forest fell silent as they pressed onward, each step bringing them closer to the unknown. Whatever awaited them, one thing was certain. The line between myth and reality was about to blur in ways none of them could have imagined. The forest grew darker as Alex and his team moved deeper into its glowing heart. The bioluminescent plants cast an eerie light, illuminating the path just enough for them to see where they were stepping, but leaving shadows that seemed to shift and writhe in the corners of their vision. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the snap of a twig, felt amplified, as if the jungle itself was alive and watching their every move. Behind Alex, Lily adjusted her scanner again, trying to keep track of the heat signatures she had detected earlier. Her hands trembled slightly, though whether from fear or excitement she couldn't tell. She glanced at Ethan, who was recording everything with a handheld camera. His face was pale, his knuckles white as he gripped the device tightly. Despite his nervousness, he didn't complain or ask to turn back. None of them did. They all knew this was too important to abandon now. Up ahead, the Veilith warriors marched silently, their spears held at the ready. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, as if they had rehearsed this journey countless times before. But even from a distance, Alex could see the tension in their bodies. Their antennae twitched constantly, scanning for any sign of danger, while their mandibles clicked softly in what Lily guessed was a form of communication. Whatever lay ahead, it terrified them, and yet they pressed on without hesitation. As they walked, Alex found himself reflecting on the strange reverence the Valeth showed toward humans. Back at the camp, he had dismissed it as superstition, perhaps born out of ignorance or misunderstanding. But now, surrounded by the alien beauty and menace of the forest, he began to wonder if there was more to it. Could humanity really have earned such respect from another species? And if so, how? His thoughts were interrupted when Lily tapped him on the shoulder. "Look," she whispered, pointing to a cluster of trees up ahead. Nestled among the roots was a pile of the glowing pods the Valeth had brought back during previous expeditions. These ones were still intact, pulsating with a soft rhythmic hum. Around them the ground was scorched as if something had tried to burn them away but failed. "They must be valuable," Alex murmured. "Important enough to risk their lives for?" Lily nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But why? What's inside them?" Before Alex could respond, one of the Valeth turned and gestured for them to hurry. The message was clear. They needed to keep moving. Reluctantly, Alex motioned for the team to follow. As they passed the pods, Ethan leaned in closer to get a better shot with his camera. The pods emitted a faint vibration as he approached, almost like a warning. He quickly backed away, muttering under his breath about not wanting to anger whatever force powered them. The group continued onward, the air growing heavier with each step. It wasn't just the humidity weighing them down, it was the anticipation, the sense that they were walking into something far bigger than themselves. Even the Valeth seemed to feel it. Their pace slowed slightly, and their chanting grew louder, filling the silence with a haunting melody. Then, without warning, the forest erupted into chaos. A deafening roar split the air, shaking the ground beneath their feet. From the shadows emerged a massive creature, its body covered in thick, spiny armor that glinted menacingly in the dim light. Its eyes burned like embers, locking onto the intruders with predatory intensity. Long, clawed limbs stretched toward them, and rows of razor-sharp teeth gleamed as it opened its mouth wide in a guttural snarl. The Valeth froze, their weapons trembling in their grasp. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the warriors stepped forward, raising his spear defiantly. But instead of attacking, he turned and pointed directly at Alex and Lily. His meaning was unmistakable. It was their turn to act. Alex swallowed hard, his mind racing. He had faced dangerous situations before, on Earth and space, but nothing quite like this. This wasn't just about survival. It was about living up to the myth the Valeth had created around him. If he hesitated now, if he showed weakness, he risked shattering their faith, not just in him, but in all of humanity. Taking a deep breath, Alex raised his plasma rifle and aimed carefully at the creature. He didn't want to kill it unless absolutely necessary. They were here to learn, not destroy. Instead, he fired a warning shot, aiming for the ground near the beast's feet. The bolt of energy struck with a crackling hiss, sending sparks flying and startling the creature. With a final roar, it reared back and retreated into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Valeth erupted into cheers, their voices rising in a chorus of clicks and hums. They dropped to their knees once more, bowing low before Alex and Lily. Some even touched their foreheads to the ground, their reverence palpable. Ethan lowered his camera, looking stunned. "Did we just become gods?" he asked weakly. Lily shook her head, though her expression was troubled. "Not gods," she said quietly. "Symbols. To them we represent strength and courage, traits they admire and lack." Alex didn't respond. He couldn't deny the rush of pride he felt in that moment, knowing he had protected the group and earned their trust. But it was fleeting, replaced by a gnawing unease. The Valeth's reaction was proof of how deeply ingrained their beliefs were. What would happen if they ever discovered the truth? That humans weren't infallible, that they were just as flawed and afraid as any other species. Back at the camp later that evening, the team gathered around a small fire, discussing what had happened. Daniel, the communications officer, had been working tirelessly to decode more of the Valith language, piecing together fragments of their history. Now, he looked up from his tablet, his expression serious. "I think I know why. They worship us," he said slowly. "According to these records centuries ago, a human ship crash-landed on this moon. Most of the crew died, but a few survived long enough to interact with the Valith. They taught them basic survival skills, how to hunt, how to defend themselves against predators like the one we saw today. Over time, those teachings became legends. The survivors were remembered as heroes, protectors sent by the stars." Lily frowned, processing the information. "So we're not just symbols of strength," she said. "We're reminders of a past alliance." "Exactly," Daniel replied. "But here's the thing. They've exaggerated the story over generations. To them, those early humans weren't just teachers. They were gods. Invincible, fearless, untouchable." Ethan let out a low whistle. "No pressure, huh?" Alex rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. "This changes everything," he said finally. "If they think we're invincible, then every decision we make matters. We can't afford to disappoint them." "But we also can't keep lying to them," Lily countered. "They need to understand that we're not perfect, that we make mistakes just like anyone else." Daniel nodded in agreement. "Agreed. But how do we break the news without destroying their faith entirely? If we tell them the truth, they might lose hope, and that could put them in even more danger." The discussion dragged on late into the night, with no clear answers emerging. Each member of the team grappled with the moral implications of their role, torn between honesty and the desire to maintain peace. In the end, they decided to table the issue for now, focusing instead on gathering more data and understanding the Valith culture better. As the fire burned down to embers, Alex stared into the flames, lost in thought. He couldn't shake the image of the Valith kneeling before him, their eyes filled with awe and gratitude. It was flattering, yes, but also terrifying. Because deep down, he knew the truth. Humanity wasn't special. Not really. They were just trying to survive same as everyone else. And yet, here they were, standing on the brink of something extraordinary. Whether it led to unity or disaster remained to be seen. The next morning, the camp was quiet. The events of the previous day lingered in everyone's minds like a heavy fog. Alex woke early, sitting by the edge of the clearing as he watched the twin moons rise above the horizon. Their pale light bathed the forest in an otherworldly glow, making the bioluminescent plants shimmer faintly. Despite the beauty around him, Alex couldn't shake the uneasiness that had settled deep in his chest. Lily joined him a short while later, carrying 2 cups of steaming synthetic coffee. She handed one to Alex without saying a word, her expression thoughtful. For a few minutes they sat in silence, sipping their drinks and watching the forest come alive with strange sounds. Finally, Lily broke the stillness. "We can't keep avoiding this," she said softly. "Sooner or later we're going to have to decide what to do about the Valith's beliefs." Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know. But how do you tell someone their gods aren't real? Especially when they've built their entire worldview around it?" "It's not just about telling them," Lily replied. "It's about showing them. We need to prove that we're not invincible, that we're just as flawed as they are. Maybe then they'll stop seeing us as gods and start seeing us as equals." Ethan approached them, holding his camera close to his chest. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes betraying another restless night. "What happens if they reject us?" he asked nervously. "If they realize we're not what they thought, won't they turn on us?" "That's the risk," Alex admitted. "But I think it's worth taking. Honesty might be our only chance at building a real relationship with them. If we keep pretending, we're just setting ourselves up for failure." Lily nodded in agreement. "And besides, we owe it to them. They trusted us enough to let us into their world. The least we can do is return that trust. As the team prepared for the day ahead, Daniel arrived with new information. His face was flushed with excitement as he waved his tablet in the air. "I decoded more of the Valeth records last night," he announced. "Turns out there's a reason why those glowing pods are so important." Everyone gathered around as Daniel explained. According to the ancient texts, the pods contained a rare substance called viren, which the Valeth used to create advanced tools and weapons. Without it, their society would collapse. However, harvesting the pods was incredibly dangerous, because they were often guarded by the same predators that had attacked them yesterday. Over time, the Valeth developed rituals to pray for protection before attempting to retrieve the pods, and those prayers eventually evolved into worship of humans. "This explains why they're willing to risk so much," Lily said, her voice filled with awe. "Without the viren, they wouldn't survive. No wonder they see us as saviors. But it also means we're putting ourselves in harm's way every time we go out there," Ethan pointed out. "What if something worse than that armored beast shows up next time? What then?" "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it," Alex said firmly. "For now, we focus on learning as much as we can. Knowledge is power, and the more we understand about this place, the better equipped we'll be to handle whatever comes our way." With that, the team set off once again, following the Valeth warriors deeper into the forest. This time they moved with greater caution, keeping their weapons ready and their senses sharp. The jungle seemed even more hostile today, its vibrant colors masking the lurking dangers beneath. Strange creatures darted between the trees, their movements quick and unpredictable. Some resembled oversized insects, while others looked like nothing Alex had ever seen before, twisted hybrids of plant and animal. As they walked, Lily noticed something odd. The ground beneath their feet was covered in faint tracks, some fresh and others older. At first glance, they appeared to belong to the Valeth, but upon closer inspection, she realized they weren't alone. There were other prints mixed in. Larger, heavier, with claw marks etched deeply into the soil. Whatever made them was massive, far bigger than the creature they had encountered the day before. "Something big lives here," she whispered to Alex, pointing to the tracks, "bigger than anything we've seen so far." Alex frowned, scanning the area warily. "Let's hope it stays hidden." They continued onward until they reached a clearing dominated by a massive tree whose trunk glowed with an intense blue light. Hanging from its branches were dozens of pods, each one pulsating gently like a heartbeat. The sight was mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. Around the base of the tree, the ground was littered with bones, some small, some large, all picked, clean. It was clear that this was a feeding ground for whatever predator lurked nearby. The Valeth warriors stopped at the edge of the clearing, their spears trembling slightly in their grasp. One of them turned to Alex and Lily, gesturing toward the tree. Again, the message was clear. It was up to the humans to take the lead. Alex hesitated, weighing the risks. This wasn't like the last encounter. They were outnumbered and outgunned, both literally and figuratively. Still, he knew backing down wasn't an option. Taking a deep breath, he signaled for the team to follow him as he stepped cautiously into the open. The moment they entered the clearing, the air seemed to change. It grew colder, heavier, as if the very atmosphere was pressing down on them. Then, without warning, the ground began to tremble. A low growl echoed through the trees, growing louder with each passing second. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was enormous, easily twice the size of the armored beast they had faced before. Its body was covered in thick, leathery skin that shimmered with iridescent hues, and its long, serpentine neck ended in a head bristling with rows of jagged teeth. 4 muscular legs propelled it forward with terrifying speed, while a spiked tail lashed behind it like a whip. Its eyes locked onto Alex and his team, burning with primal fury. For a split second, no one moved. Then instinct kicked in. Alex raised his rifle and fired a burst of energy at the creature's face, aiming to stun rather than kill. The blast struck true, causing the beast to rear back with a deafening roar. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan activated a portable shield generator creating a barrier between the team and the monster. Meanwhile, Lily scrambled to analyze the creature using her scanner, hoping to find a weakness. The Valith warriors sprang into action, hurling spears tipped with crystalline shards at the beast. Most of the projectiles bounced harmlessly off its tough hide, but a few managed to pierce its flesh, drawing angry shrieks from the creature. Emboldened by the humans' leadership, the Valith pressed their attack, working together to drive the monster away from the glowing tree. But the battle was far from over. The creature retaliated with ferocious swipes of its claws, sending several warriors sprawling to the ground. One of them, a young Valith named Crix, was knocked unconscious, his spear flying from his grip. Seeing this, Alex charged forward, firing another shot at the beast's flank to draw its attention away from the fallen warrior. With its focus diverted, Lily and Ethan rushed to Crix's side, dragging him to safety behind the shield. The fight raged on for what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes. Finally, the creature let out a final ear-splitting roar before retreating into the forest, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Exhausted and battered, the group collapsed to the ground, catching their breath. When the dust settled, the Valith erupted into cheers once again, their voices echoing through the clearing. They surrounded Alex and Lily, bowing deeply and touching their foreheads to the ground. To them, this victory was proof positive of humanity's divine nature. No matter how many times Alex tried to explain otherwise, they refused to listen. In their eyes, he and his team were heroes, protectors sent by the stars themselves. Back at the camp that evening, the mood was somber despite the success of the mission. The team gathered around the fire discussing what had happened. Each of them carried scars, both physical and emotional, from the day's events, and none of them could ignore the growing sense of responsibility that came with being idolized. We can't keep doing this, Lily said, finally breaking the silence. Every time we step into that forest, we're risking our lives, and theirs. Sooner or later, something's going to go wrong, and when it does... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, but everyone understood what she meant. The stakes were getting higher, and the line between protector and participant was blurring faster than any of them had anticipated. Alex stared into the flames, his mind racing. He knew Lily was right. They couldn't sustain this charade forever. But letting go of the myth wasn't going to be easy, especially when the Valith clung to it so desperately. Somehow they needed to find a way to bridge the gap between legend and reality, to show the Valith that humans were neither gods nor failures, but something in between. And deep down, Alex hoped they'd figure it out before it was too late. The days following the battle in the clearing were tense. The Valith treated Alex and his team with even greater reverence than before, their actions bordering on obsession. Every meal was presented to them as an offering, every task performed, with a sense of awe. They no longer spoke directly to the humans unless necessary, instead communicating through gestures or intermediaries. It was clear that the victory over the massive predator had solidified their belief in humanity's divinity. For Alex, this newfound status brought more discomfort than pride. He tried to downplay their role in the fight, reminding the Valith that they were simply doing what anyone would do in such a situation. But his words fell on deaf ears. To the Valith, humility was not a virtue. It was incomprehensible. How could gods doubt their own power? Lily spent most of her time observing the tribe, trying to understand their culture better. She noticed subtle changes in their behavior since the battle. The warriors who had fought alongside them now carried themselves with renewed confidence, as if borrowing courage from the humans' example. Even the younger members of the tribe seemed inspired, practicing spear-throwing techniques and mimicking the way Alex had wielded his rifle during the fight. Ethan, meanwhile, struggled to adapt. His camera rarely left his side, capturing everything he saw, but the weight of being idolized weighed heavily on him. "I didn't sign up for this," he muttered one evening as the team sat around the fire. "I'm just here to document stuff, not play some kind of cosmic hero." "You think we had a choice?" Alex replied dryly. "None of us asked for this." "But it's getting worse," Ethan insisted. Every time we go out there, they expect us to save them. What happens when we can't? What happens when something bigger shows up and we're not enough? No one answered. The question hung in the air like smoke from the dying embers of the fire. They all knew Ethan was right. There would come a day when their luck ran out. The only question was whether they'd have the chance to prepare the Valith for that reality before it happened. The next morning, Daniel approached the group with another discovery. After spending hours poring over the decoded Valith records, he had uncovered a pattern that explained why the glowing pods were so vital to their survival. According to the ancient texts, the substance inside the pods, virin, wasn't just used for tools and weapons. It also played a crucial role in their biology, helping them resist the toxins produced by many of the forest's predators. "This is huge," Daniel said, excitement tinging his voice despite the gravity of the situation. Without virin, the Valith are vulnerable to the environment. That's why they risk everything to harvest it. Without it, they wouldn't last long. Lily frowned, processing the implications. So it's not just about survival, it's about staying alive in the literal sense. If they lose access to these pods, they're doomed. Exactly. Daniel nodded. And that's why they see you guys as protectors. You're not just defending their way of life, you're safeguarding their existence. Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. Great. So now we're responsible for keeping an entire species alive. No pressure. Despite the grim realization, the team decided to press forward. They couldn't abandon the Valith, not after learning how much depended on their efforts. Instead, they focused on finding ways to minimize the risks involved in harvesting the pods. Lily suggested setting up traps and alarms near known predator territories, while Ethan proposed using drones to scout ahead before entering dangerous areas. Alex, however, remained skeptical. It's not just about avoiding danger, he said. We need to teach them how to handle it themselves. If we keep stepping in every time things get tough, they'll never learn to stand on their own. Lily agreed. You're right. We've been enabling their dependence on us. Maybe it's time to start showing them that they don't need gods, they need teamwork. With that in mind, the team devised a plan. The next time the Valith prepared to venture into the forest, Alex and Lily joined them, not as leaders, but as teachers. As they gathered at the edge of the jungle, Alex addressed the warriors, speaking slowly and deliberately to ensure his message came across clearly. We're not here to fight your battles for you, he began. We're here to help you fight them yourselves. Today we're going to show you how to work together, how to use your strengths to overcome whatever comes your way. The Valith listened intently, their antennae twitching with curiosity. When Alex finished, one of the elders stepped forward, his mandibles clicking softly. Through Daniel's translation device, they learned that the elder wanted to know why the humans were willing to share their knowledge, rather than hoard it for themselves. Because we're not gods, Alex replied simply. We're just people, like you, and people survive by working together. The journey into the forest was different this time. Rather than relying solely on Alex and Lily to take the lead, the Valith worked as a cohesive unit, communicating silently through gestures and signals. They formed a protective circle around the humans, shielding them from potential threats while demonstrating their growing confidence. When they reached a cluster of glowing pods, Alex stopped the group and pointed to the tracks littering the ground. Look closely, he instructed. These belong to predators, big ones. If we want to collect the pods safely, we need to be smart about it. He showed them how to set simple traps using vines and sharpened sticks, creating makeshift barriers to deter smaller creatures. Lily demonstrated how to use sound to confuse larger predators, clapping her hands rhythmically to mimic the calls of harmless animals. Ethan recorded everything, ensuring the lessons could be reviewed later. At first, the Valith hesitated, unused to taking initiative without guidance. But as they practiced, their movements became more fluid, more coordinated. By the time they reached the glowing tree, they were operating almost entirely independently, relying on the humans only for advice rather than action. When a pack of smaller predators emerged from the underbrush, the Valith responded swiftly, driving them back with spears and coordinated shouts. Alex watched with pride as they executed the strategies he had taught them. proving that they were capable of handling danger on their own. But the true test came when a familiar roar echoed through the trees. The massive serpent-like creature from the previous battle returned, its eyes blazing with fury. This time, however, the Veilith didn't panic. Guided by Alex's earlier instructions, they formed a defensive line, using their spears to create a wall of sharp points aimed at the beast. Lily and Ethan activated the shield generator again, providing additional protection while the warriors baited the creature into charging. The tactic worked. The beast lunged forward, impaling itself on several spears before retreating with an angry shriek. Though injured, it survived, disappearing into the shadows once more. The Veilith erupted into cheers, celebrating their hard-won victory. For the first time, they didn't bow to the humans. Instead, they embraced each other, their joy palpable. Back at the camp that night, the atmosphere was lighter than it had been in days. The Veilith still respected the humans deeply, but the dynamic had shifted. They no longer saw them as untouchable deities but as allies, partners in survival. Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders, knowing that they had taken the first step toward breaking the cycle of worship. Lily smiled as she watched the Veilith interact with each other, their confidence shining through. "They're stronger than we thought," she said quietly. "All they needed was a little faith in themselves. And maybe a little faith in us too," Alex added, "not as gods, but as equals." As the fire crackled softly in the background, Ethan replayed the footage from the day, marveling at how far they had come. "Do you think they'll ever fully let go of the myth?" he asked. "Probably not completely," Lily admitted. "But myths evolve. Maybe someday they'll remember us not as gods, but as friends." Alex nodded, staring into the flames. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges they couldn't predict. But for now, they had made progress, and that was enough. The days that followed the Veilith's newfound confidence were a mix of progress and tension. The team worked tirelessly to reinforce the lessons they had taught, helping the tribe refine their hunting and defense strategies. But despite the growing bond between humans and aliens, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Veilith still treated them with reverence, though less fervently than before. Their actions carried an undertone of expectation, as if they believed the humans held secrets yet to be revealed. Lily noticed it too. She spent hours observing the tribe, noting how their behavior shifted depending on who was present. When Alex or any member of the team walked by, the Veilith would pause whatever they were doing, their antennae perking up in acknowledgement. It was subtle, but undeniable. The myth of human divinity still lingered, even after everything they had done to dispel it. One evening, as the team gathered around the fire, Lily voiced her concerns. "I don't think we've broken the cycle," she said softly. "We've just bent it. They're starting to trust themselves more, which is great, but they're still relying on us for guidance." Alex nodded, poking at the embers with a stick. "It's going to take time. Generations, maybe. Myths don't disappear overnight." "But what happens when we leave?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with worry. "They'll go back to praying, to holograms, waiting for gods who aren't coming." Daniel chimed in, his tone thoughtful. "Maybe that's not entirely bad. As long as those prayers inspire them to survive, does it really matter if they believe in something that isn't real?" "It matters," Lily replied firmly, "because belief without truth is fragile. What happens when reality catches up? To them? When they face something they can't overcome, no matter how much faith they have?" Her words hung heavy in the air, unspoken fears lingering like smoke from the dying fire. None of them had answers. Only questions, each one more daunting than the last. The next morning, the team decided to explore a part of the forest they hadn't ventured into yet. According to Daniel's translations of the Veilith records, this area was home to a rare type of glowing pod that contained purer viren, making it even more valuable. However, it was also rumored to be guarded by creatures far deadlier than anything they had encountered so far. As they prepared for the journey, Alex pulled Lily aside. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. "We've pushed our luck enough already." "We don't have a choice," she replied. "If we want to understand why these pods are so important, and why the Valith risk so much for them, we need to see it for ourselves." Reluctantly, Alex agreed. Together they rallied the group, explaining their plan to the Valith elders. To their surprise, the aliens hesitated. One elder named Zerkth stepped forward, his mandibles clicking rapidly as he spoke. Through Daniel's translation device, they learned that the region was considered sacred, a place where only the bravest warriors dared to tread. "This could be our chance to prove ourselves again," Alex suggested. "If we show them we're willing to face the same dangers they do, maybe they'll stop seeing us as gods and start seeing us as equals." With some reluctance, the Valith agreed to accompany them. A small group of warriors volunteered to join the expedition, their spears gleaming faintly in the dim light. As they set off, the air grew colder, the forest denser. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, low growls, sharp hisses, and the occasional rustle of movement. Every step felt heavier, as if the jungle itself was resisting their intrusion. After several hours of walking, they reached a clearing unlike anything they had seen before. At its center stood a massive tree, its trunk glowing with an intense golden hue. Hanging from its branches were dozens of pods, each one radiating a soft, steady light. The sight was breathtaking, almost hypnotic. But what caught their attention most was the ground beneath the tree. It was littered with bones, some large, some small, all bleached white by time. "This is it," Lily whispered, her voice filled with awe, "the source of their legends." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the earth. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they had ever imagined. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the serpent-like beast they had fought before. Its body was covered in thick armored plates that shimmered with iridescent colors, and its head was crowned with jagged horns that glinted menacingly in the dim light. Rows of razor-sharp teeth lined its mouth, and its eyes burned with an unnatural intensity. For a moment, everyone froze. Then instinct took over. Alex raised his rifle and fired a burst of energy at the creature, aiming for its eyes. The blast struck true, causing the beast to roar in pain and stagger backward. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan activated the portable shield generator, creating a barrier between the group and the monster. Meanwhile, Lily scrambled to analyze the creature using her scanner, searching for weaknesses. The Valith warriors sprang into action, hurling spears tipped with crystalline shards at the beast. Most of the projectiles bounced harmlessly off its tough hide, but a few managed to pierce its flesh, drawing angry shrieks from the creature. Emboldened by the humans' leadership, the Valith pressed their attack, working together to drive the monster away from the glowing tree. But the battle was far from over. The creature retaliated with ferocious swipes of its claws, sending several warriors sprawling to the ground. One of them, a young Valith named Crix, was knocked unconscious, his spear flying from his grip. Seeing this, Alex charged forward, firing another shot at the beast's flank to draw its attention away from the fallen warrior. With its focus diverted, Lily and Ethan rushed to Crix's side, dragging him to safety behind the shield. The fight raged on for what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes. Finally, the creature let out a final, ear-splitting roar before retreating into the forest, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Exhausted and battered, the group collapsed to the ground, catching their breath. When the dust settled, the Valith erupted into cheers once again, their voices echoing through the clearing. They surrounded Alex and Lily, bowing deeply and touching their foreheads to the ground. To them, this victory was proof positive of humanity's divine nature. No matter how many times Alex tried to explain otherwise, they refused to listen. In their eyes, he and his team were heroes, protectors sent by the stars themselves. Back at the camp that evening, the mood was somber, despite the success of the mission. The team gathered around the fire, discussing what had happened. Each of them carried scars, both physical and emotional, from the day's events, and none of them could ignore the growing sense of responsibility that came with being idolized. "Can't keep doing this," Lily said finally, breaking the silence. "Every time we step into that forest, we're risking our lives, And theirs. Sooner or later, something's going to go wrong. And when it does, she trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. But everyone understood what she meant. The stakes were getting higher, and the line between protector and participant was blurring faster than any of them had anticipated. Alex stared into the flames, his mind racing. He knew Lily was right. They couldn't sustain this charade forever. But letting go of the myth wasn't going to be easy, especially when the Valith clung to it so desperately. Somehow they needed to find a way to bridge the gap between legend and reality, to show the Valith that humans were neither gods nor failures, but something in between. And deep down, Alex hoped they'd figure it out before it was too late. Over. The next few days, the team focused on documenting everything they had learned about the Valith and their environment. Daniel compiled detailed notes on the tribe's history, culture, and language, while Ethan edited hours of footage into a comprehensive record of their experiences. Lily studied the glowing pods, analyzing their composition and testing their effects on both organic and synthetic materials. Her findings confirmed what they had suspected. The virin inside the pods was not only vital for the Valith's survival, but also possessed properties that could revolutionize human technology. As they prepared to leave the moon, Alex called a meeting with the Valith elders. Using Daniel's translation device, he explained that their mission was coming to an end. "We've learned so much from you," he said sincerely. "And we hope you've learned from us too. But we can't stay here forever. You have to trust yourselves, not us, to keep your people safe." The elders listened intently, their expressions unreadable. When Alex finished, Zerk stepped forward, his mandibles clicking softly. Through Daniel, they learned that the elder wanted to thank them, not as gods, but as friends. "For generations we prayed to your kind," Zerk said, "but now we see you as equals. You have shown us strength, wisdom, and courage. We will remember you, not as legends, but as allies." The words brought a lump to Alex's throat. For the first time since arriving on the moon, he felt a glimmer of hope. The myth might never fully disappear, but it had evolved, transformed into something stronger, more meaningful. As the team boarded their ship and lifted off into the starry sky, Alex looked down at the glowing forest below. He knew their journey was far from over. But for now, they had planted the seeds of change, and that was enough.